Hey, what's up, everyone? Today gets dark. These ones really stuck with me. Subscribe for more, and let's get started. I, 27-year-old female, went back to my childhood home after my mom died and found the spot under the hedges where the garden used to feed me. I don't think it was a garden. This one sat with me for a while, not because of where it goes, though it goes somewhere dark, but because of what it does to a memory you thought was beautiful. OP is 27, her mom just died, and she's back at the childhood home alone to clean it out and get it ready for sale. Her mom was an alcoholic, bad enough that OP basically raised herself from about age 4. She talks about spending hours outside every day just to stay out of the way. And then she gets to the part about the hedge. Growing up, I spent most of my time outside because inside wasn't really an option. My mom would be passed out by noon, and I learned pretty early that if I was quiet and out of the way, things went smoother. There was this massive hedgerow along the back fence, and underneath it there was a hollow, like a little room made of branches and dirt. I called it the garden. I'd crawl in there and just sit for hours. And here's the thing I always told myself as a kid. The garden fed me. Little plates of food would just appear in the dirt. Crackers, sliced fruit, sometimes a sandwich cut into triangles. I thought it was fairies. I literally believed the earth loved me enough to leave me food. I'm back here now hacking the hedge down to prep the yard for sale, and I decided to crawl into the hollow one more time. It's smaller than I remember, but it's still structured, like someone maintained it. The branches are cut in specific places. There's a shape to it. I started pulling up brush and my hand hit something hard, a rotted plastic storage bin buried in the soil. I opened it, and inside were dozens of small ceramic plates, identical, child-sized, stacked neatly like someone had collected them over years. And zip-tied to a branch on the interior wall, a baby monitor receiver. The wire ran along the ground and trailed straight toward the neighbor's fence. I sat in the dirt for 10 minutes before I could move. She didn't call anyone. She didn't move the plates. She just sat there in the dirt where she used to sit as a 4-year-old and tried to understand what she was looking at. So OP is still in the dirt, phone out, hands barely steady enough to take a clear shot. And this is where she starts trying to talk herself into a version of this that doesn't completely terrify her. She runs through every harmless explanation she can build, and one by one, they all fall apart. I took pictures of everything: the plates, the bin, the baby monitor, the wire trailing along the ground toward the fence. My hands were shaking so bad half the photos came out blurred. I kept trying to make it make sense. Maybe my mom set this up during one of her sober stretches, felt guilty enough to leave food out for me. Maybe a kind neighbor saw a skinny kid hiding under the hedges and just wanted to help. But the baby monitor killed every innocent version I could come up with. You don't zip tie a receiver into a hedge because you're being neighborly. I called my aunt, mom's sister, only family I actually trust. Told her what I found, and she went completely quiet. Then she asked which neighbor's fence the wire ran toward. I said the left side, Mr. Linden's house. She didn't speak for what felt like a full minute. Then her voice changed, and she told me, "Do not go back into the yard. Pack a bag, come stay with her tonight." I pushed for more, but she shut it down. Said we'd talk when I got there. I couldn't sleep. Started Googling his name instead. He died 2 years ago. House is listed as vacant. But I drove past it around midnight anyway, and every blind was pulled tight, and there was a car in the driveway I have never seen before. I sat there in my car for 10 minutes staring at it. Told myself it was probably a relative handling the estate, maybe a squatter. Drove back to my mom's house, locked every single door, turned on every light, and just laid there staring at the ceiling until the sun came up. That silence on the phone is what broke something in her. Her aunt didn't sound shocked. She didn't sound confused. She sounded like someone who had been dreading that phone call for 20 years. And now OP is locked inside her dead mother's house, every light burning, lying awake 30 feet from a property that is supposed to be empty, but clearly is not. So OP goes to her aunt's place the next morning, and this is where the story starts cracking wide open. My aunt didn't even let me finish before she said his name. I told her about the plates, the baby monitor, the wire running toward the fence on the left side. She closed her eyes and said, "Lyndon." She told me he was investigated in 2005. Another kid on our street came forward about him, Charges got dropped, not enough evidence. She said she went to my mom after that, begged her to move us out of that house, but mom was already too far gone by then. Couldn't even keep the lights on most months. My aunt said she tried to get custody of me. She was denied. I sat there doing the math and my whole body went cold. 2005. I would have been 6. I had already been eating from those plates for 2 years by then. When I got back to mom's house, I pulled up county property records on my phone. Lyndon installed that privacy fence in September 2001, the same month I turned 4. The exact same window I started finding food in the hollow. I always believed that space under the hedge was the one safe place in my childhood, the one good memory. And now I'm sitting in my aunt's kitchen realizing it was built for me. Not for me like a gift, for me like a trap. The comment section on this one went somewhere important. I work in child advocacy, and this is textbook environmental grooming. They create a space that feels safe and magical to the child, so the child returns voluntarily. The fact you remembered it fondly is not your fault. That was engineered. Thank you for saying that. I've been carrying so much shame because up until 3 days ago, that hedge was one of my only happy childhood memories. I used to tell my therapist about the garden that took care of me, like it was this beautiful thing. She never questioned it either. I feel like I've been grieving a place that was actually a trap, and I don't know what to do with the years I spent being grateful to it. Your mother let you go hungry enough that a stranger's food under a bush felt like love. I'm angry at everyone in this story. OP came back 4 days later with an update post. And I need you to understand, this is where the entire story breaks open. I found out who's been going into the hedge, and I can't stop throwing up. I took your advice. I asked the neighbor 2 doors down, the one who just installed Ring cameras last month, if she could pull footage around Lyndon's property. She found clips from the last 3 weeks. Someone has been entering the hedge hollow at night. They come from Lyndon's yard through a gap in the back fence, the same exact path that baby monitor wire followed. But Lyndon has been dead for 2 years. I watched the clips over and over before I let myself see what I was looking at. I recognized the walk, the build, the way he rolls his shoulders forward. It's Danny. My brother Danny, who told everyone he was moving to Oregon 3 years ago. I called my aunt, barely able to hold the phone. She went quiet and then started sobbing. She told me she suspected Danny never really left, but she didn't know where he was staying. I drove past Lyndon's house one more time. The car in the driveway is Danny's old Civic, Oregon plate still on it. He has been living in a dead man's vacant house this whole time. I don't know what to do with any of this. Did Lyndon teach him? Was Danny one of his victims too? Or was he part of it from the start? I don't know which answer scares me more. People in the comments were not handling this well, and honestly, neither was I. Please tell me you've contacted the police already. The fact that someone is still visiting that spot means this isn't over. Wait, your brother is living in the dead neighbor's house and nobody in the family thought that was strange? How long has he been there? This is the part that's screaming at me too. Brother who supposedly moved away is secretly living in the dead groomer's house and still visiting the spot where his sister was fed as a child? That's not grief, that's not squatting, that's continuation. OP needs to get far away from that property immediately. Nobody in that thread had a single thing to say after that. OP went quiet too, but she wasn't done. OP came back one more time. This one was short. I filed a police report. Danny was brought in for questioning and released the same day. No charges yet. The investigation is ongoing, but the detective told me these things move slow and I should prepare for that. I moved in with my aunt 3 states away. I'm in therapy twice a week. I don't know what Danny was doing in the hollow. I don't know who he thought he was leaving things for. My mom's house was empty for weeks before I even got there. No one was home. No kid was playing in that yard. But he was still going out there at night with those little plates. I keep turning it over and trying to make it make sense, and it doesn't. What I can't stop thinking about is how grateful I felt. I was 4 years old, sitting cross-legged in the dirt, eating off those little plates, and I felt so loved. I thought something in the world cared enough to feed me. I thought I was special. And the gratitude is the part that makes me sick now, because whoever was doing that to me, whether it started with Lyndon or whether Danny picked it up or both, they took the one good feeling I had as a kid, and it was never mine. It was theirs. I don't know how to grieve something that was never real. That last line broke the comment section open. The plates being stacked neatly is somehow the most disturbing detail. This wasn't impulsive. He had a system. He had a routine with you. The gratitude is the part that makes her sick. That line is going to stay with me for a long time. If this post resonates with you, please know you are not alone. RAIN Hotline 1-800-656-4673. Free, confidential 24/7. What gets me about this one is how grooming works. It takes a child's survival instincts, the need to eat, the need to feel safe, and turns those instincts into a leash. OP didn't do anything wrong by feeling grateful. She was 4. She was hungry. But recognizing that now, naming it, sitting in therapy with it, that takes a kind of courage most people never have to find. All right, on to the next one. My great-uncle died alone and we found his house. He had files on every single one of us going back to 1971. This next one showed up on r/nosleep about 6 days ago, posted by Estate Sale Eli. It starts like a standard creepy inheritance story. Family clears out a dead relative's house. But trust me, it goes somewhere else entirely. OP gets right into it. So my great-uncle Vernon died about 3 weeks ago. No wife, no kids, barely showed up to holidays. He lived alone in this rural house about 4 hours from the nearest family member, and honestly, none of us really knew the guy. He was just kind of there at the edges of every family photo. My mom asked me, 28-year-old male, and my 2 cousins to go clear the place out since we were the youngest and had the most flexible schedules. We got there on a Saturday morning. First thing that hit me was how clean everything was. Weirdly clean for a man who lived alone for decades. Everything organized, labeled, dusted. We split up rooms to make it go faster. I took the basement. Most of it was storage bins and old furniture, but there was one door at the far end that was locked. Not just closed, locked with a deadbolt from the outside. My cousin Tyler kicked it in. Inside was a full office. Desk, lamp, filing cabinets lining every wall. The tabs on the cabinets had names on them. Our names. Every living member of the family had their own file. I pulled mine and opened it. Inside were time-stamped entries going back to when I was a kid. School records, printed screenshots from my social media, candid photographs I never posed for. Then I found one photo that stopped me cold. It was me on my first day of college, standing in my dorm hallway with my bags. Vernon lived 400 miles away. Nobody told him what school I picked. He was never invited. I stared at the angle and realized whoever took it was standing about 6 feet directly behind me. And that is where the first post opens up. Not with a ghost, not with a sound in the walls, just a dead man's office and a photograph that could not possibly exist. OP has not even opened the other files yet, and there are a lot of them. They went back to that basement the next morning, and this time, OP and his cousins were not looking at just one file. They started pulling every single drawer. What they found was not just unsettling, it was methodical. Decades of surveillance on his own family, organized like active case files. Every living member of our family had a file. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even the kids. Some of these went back to 1971. The detail was unreal. Daily routines, license plates of people we dated, photos taken through car windows and across parking lots from distances that meant he had just been sitting there watching us live our lives. Megan found her file and broke down. Photos of her walking her dog at night, taken from the tree line behind her apartment. She lives alone. She does that walk at 11 p.m. every night. Someone was standing in the dark with a camera. Then we found a separate cabinet labeled Relationships. Subfiles on every partner any of us had ever been with. rated on health history, genetic traits, and something Vernon called suitability, like we were livestock. We argued for over an hour. Megan wanted police. Derek said tell the family first. I could not think. I grabbed my file and took it home. That night, I could not sleep. I sat on my bed flipping page after page until I hit something that stopped me cold. Vernon had notes on my breakup in 2019. Not just that it happened, he had the exact words my ex said to me the night she left, word for word. I only ever told one person those words, my mother. His mother. The only person OP ever said those words to. And Vernon had them written down in a locked filing cabinet 400 miles away in a house nobody visited. That is the kind of detail that rewrites everything you thought you knew about your own family. And OP is about to start asking questions that nobody wants to answer. OP did what anyone would do after finding something like that. He called his mom. That conversation changed everything. I called my mom the next morning, told her what we found. The files, the photos, the relationship ratings. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, Vernon was always like that. Like I had just told her he collected stamps or something. I pushed harder. I asked her how Vernon knew the exact words my ex said to me during our breakup, words I only ever told her. She got defensive, said I was making it into something it wasn't. Said Vernon was a little odd, but he was family, and he never hurt anyone. I told her about the surveillance photos of Megan taken from the tree line behind her apartment. She said I was being dramatic and hung up on me. We went back to the house that afternoon, all three of us. We pulled open a section of the cabinet none of us had touched yet. The label on the front read, Actions Taken. Inside were carbon copies of anonymous letters Vernon had sent to family members' partners. Forged documents designed to end relationships. And then we found it. A manila envelope labeled March 1994, R. Moore Vehicle. My cousin Jake went white. R. Moore was our Aunt Rachel. Her first husband was in a car accident in '94. Everyone always said it was black ice. The marriage fell apart after. Inside the envelope was a hand-drawn diagram of the intersection where it happened, and a receipt for brake service from a shop 2 towns over, dated 3 days before the crash. We sat in that basement for a long time after that. Nobody said a word. There was nothing to say. Reactions to this one hit different. The photograph from inside your dorm hallway is what got me. That means he was physically there. He walked those halls. That's not passive observation, that's hunting. I genuinely need you to check if there are files on people outside your family too. Partners, friends, co-workers. If he was evaluating relationships, he would have been watching both sides. OP, please check if any of those files contain information about your family's medical records or genetic history. The word candidates is giving me eugenics vibes, and I really hope I'm wrong. You're not wrong. There was a whole section in each file labeled Lineage Risk Assessment, with handwritten notes about conditions that run in our family. He had it charted out like a breeding program. I found my sister's file, and he had circled her fiancé's name and written unsuitable, history of autoimmune, mother's side, with a date 2 weeks before he died. And that last detail is the one that sits with you. Vernon was still working 2 weeks before he died, still crossing names out, still deciding who was good enough. OP came back a few days later with an update post, and this one changed everything. I found out what my great-uncle actually did to our family, and my mom won't speak to me. I didn't want to come back here, but things got worse. We had a family meeting last weekend. Everyone showed up. I laid out what we found in that basement. Most of the room went silent. But my mom, she didn't look shocked. She looked tired, like she'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. She told us everything. Vernon saw himself as guardian of our bloodline. Our family carries a recessive genetic condition. She wouldn't name it, just kept saying the thing we don't talk about. Vernon never married, never had kids, and decided that made him the judge of who got to marry in. He spent decades screening partners. If someone didn't pass his evaluation, he'd end it. Anonymous letters, fabricated cheating evidence, whatever worked. At least 3 relationships were destroyed that way. Then she said it. The 1994 accident with Rachel's husband. Vernon tampered with the brakes because the husband's family carried something Vernon found unacceptable. Mom knew pieces of this for years and said nothing. I couldn't even look at her. Then Megan called from the house. She found one more file, labeled Next Candidates. Names, partner evaluations, projected action dates stretching into 2025. My sister Jess is on that list. She got engaged 3 months ago. Vernon has been dead for 2 weeks, and his plans still have a timeline. The comments on this update were ruthless. Your mom's reaction is telling you everything. She knows more than she's saying. The fact that she went quiet instead of horrified means this isn't new information to her. This is exactly what I was thinking. And if the mom knew, that means at least one generation was aware and either couldn't stop him or chose not to. Which raises the question of whether he was acting alone at all. I work in estate law, and I've seen some disturbing things in probate cleanouts, but an entire basement dedicated to surveilling your own bloodline is a first. Please tell me you photographed everything before touching it. So here is where everything landed. We contacted law enforcement, laid everything out, the files, the brake tampering receipt, the next candidates list, all of it. They were sympathetic, but honest. Vernon is dead. Most of the evidence is circumstantial without his testimony. They said they'd look into the 1994 accident, but nobody sounded hopeful. Rachel's ex-husband was informed by one of my cousins. She said he went completely silent on the phone and then just hung up. Didn't ask a single question, didn't yell, nothing. Just silence and a click. The older family members are worse in a different way. 2 of my aunts told me I was being dramatic. That Vernon was eccentric, sure, but this was just his way of caring about the family. His way of caring. Mom has stopped returning my calls entirely. I've tried 4 times this week. My sister is happy right now. She's planning her wedding, posting engagement photos every other day, picking out centerpieces with her fiancé. She doesn't know her name is in a dead man's file with a projected action date and her fiancé's medical history highlighted in red. I don't know if telling her protects her or just poisons something beautiful with something dead. Vernon watched us for 50 years and none of us knew. And the thing I can't stop thinking is, was he the only one? This one sits different. 50 years of surveillance dressed up as love. And the scariest part isn't Vernon, it's the family around him. The ones who knew pieces and said nothing. The ones calling OP dramatic right now. Vernon didn't protect his family. He curated them, bred them like a project. And that last question OP leaves us with, was he really working alone? Because those files were too organized, too current for one elderly man working by himself. So what would you do? Tell the sister or let it die with Vernon? The fact that no one in your family noticed for 50 years is the part that's going to keep me up tonight. How do you watch that many people for that long without a single slip? All right, on to the next one. My boyfriend, 27-year-old male, ignored my safe word during intimacy and then whispered something that made me lock myself in the bathroom for 3 hours. This one is going to sit with you. I need you to hear that up front because what this woman describes is not just unsettling. It is the kind of thing that rewires how you think about the person sleeping next to you. OP is a 24-year-old woman, 2 years deep into a relationship she genuinely believed was solid. She posted this to r/offmychest 5 days ago, and the title alone had people holding their breath. We had been together for 2 years. He was always a little intense, but I honestly read it as passion, like he just wanted me that badly. Early on, he actually suggested we introduce a safe word, which at the time I thought was so mature and thoughtful. It made me feel like he genuinely cared about my comfort and my boundaries. That night, things started out normal, but at some point, something shifted. The energy in the room changed. It got rougher and not in a way I was okay with. So I said the safe word. He didn't stop. I said it again louder. Nothing. I screamed it a 3rd time and I was full on crying at that point. He finally stopped. But he didn't apologize. He didn't panic or pull away. He didn't hold me or ask if I was okay. He just looked at me with completely flat eyes, no emotion whatsoever, and he said very calmly, "I was in the mood to kill you just now. Like actually kill you. I want you to know that." I could not move. I could not breathe. The silence after those words was the loudest thing I have ever experienced in my life. I locked myself in the bathroom and my hands were shaking so bad I could barely type. I texted my sister, Come get me right now. Then I just sat down on the cold tile floor and waited. And that is where this post cuts off. Her sitting on a bathroom floor in the dark, waiting for her phone to light up, with him right on the other side of that door. So she is on the bathroom floor, phone in her hands, waiting. And while she waits, she can hear everything on the other side of that door. And what she hears is the real nightmare. I sat there for almost 40 minutes, and the whole time I could hear him. He got up off the bed, walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge. I heard a can crack open. Then the TV came on, sports or something. He was just living his life out there, like nothing happened. Like he hadn't just pinned me down, ignored our safe word 3 times, and told me to my face that he wanted to kill me. My sister finally texted, "I'm outside, come now." I grabbed my phone and shoes and went straight for the front door. I didn't say a word to him. I couldn't look at him. But I saw him from the corner of my eye, sitting on the couch with the remote in his hand. He didn't get up, didn't call after me, didn't even turn his head. The drive to my sister's was 20 minutes, and I don't remember a single second. I just shook. At her place, I tried to explain, and I kept stopping myself mid-sentence. Did I overreact? He didn't hit me. He didn't actually do anything. He just said it. My sister grabbed both my hands and said, "That is a threat. That is what a threat sounds like, and you need to hear yourself right now." I wanted to believe her, but then the next few days happened. He texted me like everything was fine. "Hey babe, you left your charger here." Next morning, "Miss you." No sorry. No mention of that night. Nothing. Just normal boyfriend texts. And slowly, day by day, I started feeling like maybe I made the whole thing up in my head. That pattern right there. The calm after something horrifying. The casual texts with no acknowledgement. That is not someone who forgot what they did. That is someone watching to see if you will come back on your own. And the worst part? It was already working. She was on her sister's couch, rewriting that night in her head, talking herself out of her own memory. And he hadn't even had to say a single word to make that happen. And this is where the isolation kicks in. 3 days after I left, my phone started blowing up. But not from him, from our friends. "Why are you ghosting Jake? He said you guys had a fight and you just left. Are you okay?" He rewrote the entire thing, turned it into me being dramatic over nothing. I almost went back. I sat in my sister's car with the engine running, and I almost drove to his apartment because I thought maybe I was the crazy one. My sister physically took my keys. She said if I wouldn't leave for myself, then at least file a report so there's a paper trail. So I did. I sat in a police station at 11 at night, trying to explain to an officer that my boyfriend told me he wanted to kill me during intimacy. The way that man looked at me, I will never forget it. He filed the report, but said there wasn't much they could do with a verbal statement and no witnesses. I'm still sleeping on my sister's couch. I jump every time my phone goes off. But here's the thing that's really getting to me now. I started making a list in my notes app. Every moment over 2 years that felt wrong. The jokes that weren't really jokes. The times he grabbed me a little too hard and laughed it off. The comments that cut just a bit too deep. I thought I'd write down maybe 5 things. I'm at 23 and I'm still remembering more. The comments on this one cut straight to the core of it. The fact that he said it calmly is what's destroying me. That's not someone who lost control. That's someone who wanted you to know exactly what he was thinking. The safe word thing is what gets me. He heard you. He understood you wanted to stop. And he just decided your boundaries didn't apply anymore. That tells you everything about what you were to him. I work in DV advocacy, and this is one of the most dangerous escalation patterns we see. The verbalized fantasy combined with the calm delivery. OP, please contact a local DV hotline immediately, not just the police. I called the hotline you linked in your DM, thank you. The woman I spoke to said something that broke me. She said men who verbalize it out loud like that have usually been thinking it for a long time and are testing your reaction to see if you'll normalize it. Looking back, he'd made smaller comments before, like joking about how easy it would be to hurt me because I'm so small. I thought he was just being weird. Then OP posted an update, and this is where the story goes from disturbing to something else entirely. I found his journal entries on our shared iPad and I can't stop shaking. I went back to the apartment with my sister and our friend Marcus while he was at work. I just needed my clothes, my documents, the basics. I was in and out mode. But I saw our shared iPad sitting on the nightstand, and I remembered I was still logged into everything on it. So I opened it to sign out of my accounts. That is when I saw the Notes app. There were dozens of entries, months of them. They were not vague, they were not metaphors or dark jokes or whatever excuse you want to hand me. He had written out detailed fantasies about hurting me, specific logistics, what time I leave for work, how long it takes before my family checks in on me, which of my friends would notice first if I disappeared, how he would explain it. Notes about whether my building has cameras in the stairwell. I read maybe 4 or 5 entries before my hand started shaking so bad I almost dropped the iPad. The room tilted. I felt like I was reading about someone else, but it was my name on every page. My sister had to physically grab me and pull me out of the apartment. I screenshotted everything I could before we left, and I brought it straight to the police. They took it seriously this time. The comment section on this update lost its collective mind. I was in the mood to kill you is not a thought normal people have during intimacy. That's not a red flag, that's a full confession of what he's capable of. Exactly this. People keep calling these things red flags like it's a warning of something that might happen. No, the thing already happened. He told her who he is during the most vulnerable moment possible. That is the event. These entries are textbook rehearsal documentation. In criminal psychology, we see this pattern where the subject journals logistics and timing as a way of mentally rehearsing the act. This is pre-offense behavior, and OP needs a lawyer yesterday. Please tell me you're staying somewhere safe right now. Please tell me he doesn't know where your sister lives. That last comment sat different, because up until now, she had been thinking about what he did, not about what he might still be planning. So this is where things finally come to a close for Throwaway Don't Find Me. The restraining order went through. For about 3 weeks, everything was quiet, and I started to feel like maybe I could breathe again. I changed my locks, got a camera for the front door, started sleeping through the night for the first time in weeks. Then one Tuesday morning, I walked out to my car, and there was a single white envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. No name on it, no return address. Inside was a house key. Not my apartment key, not his. A key to an address I had never seen before. I called the police immediately. They investigated the address. I am not going to share what they found there because honestly, I still cannot talk about it without shutting down. No charges stuck. That was the moment I knew staying in the same state was not an option. I broke my lease, packed what I could fit in my car, moved across the country to a city where I knew exactly one person. Deleted every social media account. New phone number, new email. I am writing this from a throwaway I will never log into again. To everyone who messaged me, commented, sent resources, thank you. You kept me from going back. You reminded me I was not crazy. I am safe now. That is all I need anyone to know. Think about what that means. The person who held her every night, who suggested the safe word in the first place, was rehearsing her disappearance on paper. The safe word was never real protection. It was a prop in a performance he controlled from the very beginning. Her instinct to run that night, to lock that bathroom door and text her sister those 5 words, that single decision probably saved her life. Those journal entries were not some momentary outburst. They were months of deliberate, methodical escalation. 2 years. 2 whole years of sleeping next to someone thinking those thoughts. I'm going to be sick. If someone tells you who they are, especially in a moment like that, believe them the first time. All right, on to the next one. My neighbor used to peek at me over her fence when I was little. Her fence is 10 feet tall, 26-year-old female. This was posted to r/nosleep 3 days ago by Sunflower Static. Fair warning on this one. It starts off feeling like a childhood memory, and then the ground drops out from under you. She opens the post like someone who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and only just found a reason to set it down. I, 26-year-old female, grew up in one of those neighborhoods where nothing ever happened. Cookie-cutter houses, the kind of street where everyone waved but nobody really talked. We moved there when I was 5 and left when I was 7. I barely remember most of it, but I remember Mrs. Bellamy. She lived next door. There was this massive privacy fence between our yards. Solid wood, dark stain, way taller than any other fence on the block. As a kid, I never questioned it. She was old, ancient old, thin white hair, skin like tissue paper. But her voice was so warm. She would appear above the top of that fence while I was playing in the yard and hand things down to me. Cookies wrapped in wax paper, sandwiches cut into triangles, sliced fruit in these small ceramic bowls I would leave on the back step for her to collect. Her fingers were long and pale, and they would curl right over the top of the fence, and she would lower whatever she brought me so gently. It felt like having a secret grandmother. I never once felt afraid. My mom came outside one afternoon while Mrs. Bellamy was handing me strawberries. I turned around smiling. My mom was on the porch and she screamed, not yelled, screamed so hard she burst a blood vessel in her eye. We were packed and gone in 48 hours. Mother has not said the name Bellamy in 20 years. I am posting because something happened last week that made me start questioning everything. And that is where this one pauses. But I need you to sit with that image for a second. Because what comes next, when OP goes back to that neighborhood as an adult and actually looks at that fence, the math on this whole memory is about to stop making sense, and it is going to crawl under your skin. So OP grew up, moved away, went to college, built a whole normal life. But the thing about childhood memories like this is they don't disappear. They just go quiet for a while. For years, I barely thought about Mrs. Bellamy. She was just this fuzzy, warm memory from when I was little. The nice old lady next door who used to hand me snacks over the fence. I never questioned why we moved so fast. Kids don't question things like that. You just go where your parents take you. But she never fully left either. Every few months I'd have this dream, always the same one. I'm standing in the backyard and there's a face above the fence, smiling down at me, and these long, pale fingers are curling over the top, holding out something wrapped in a napkin. I always woke up feeling calm. That's the part that unsettles me now. 3 weeks ago, I had a work trip that brought me about 40 minutes from my old neighborhood. I don't know what made me do it, but I drove over there after my last meeting. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Different color, different car in the driveway, but Mrs. Bellamy's fence was still there. Same dark wood panels, same height. I stood on the sidewalk staring at it, and that's when my brain finally did the math it should have done 20 years ago. I'm 5'7". I walked up to that fence and reached my arm straight up, and my fingertips barely grazed the top. That fence is 10 feet tall. Mrs. Bellamy was this tiny, hunched-over old woman, maybe 5'2" on a good day. She used to appear above that fence from the chest up, leaning over it casually like it was a kitchen counter. I looked at her side of the property through a gap in the wood. No ladder, no step stool, no platform, nothing. There has never been anything there. I called my mom 7 times that night. She didn't pick up once. She read every single one of my texts and didn't respond to any of them. And that right there is the moment this story shifts from a weird childhood memory into something that crawls under your skin. Because OP isn't speculating. She stood next to that fence as a grown adult, and the numbers just don't work. Her mom knows it too. You don't dodge 7 calls in a row unless you already know exactly what the question is and you're terrified of the answer. OP finally got her mom on the phone, and the silence on the other end said everything before a single word did. She picked up on the 4th ring, and before I even said anything, she just goes, "I knew you'd call." Her voice was flat. I told her I went back to the old house. I told her about the fence and how tall it was. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "That woman was there before any of us, before the street, before the subdivision was even planned." I asked what that meant, and she started talking in these broken little pieces, like she was pulling each word out with pliers. She said the family who owned our house before us were the ones who built that fence. 10 feet. Deliberate. And the neighborhood had rules. Unwritten ones passed between families. Don't leave your children outside alone. Don't accept anything handed over the fence. And whatever you do, don't look into her yard after dark. My parents were never told any of this. The realtor never mentioned it. We moved in blind. I kept pushing and she just started crying. Not soft crying either, the kind where someone sounds like they're breaking apart. She said, "I should have told you sooner," and hung up. I sat there for 20 minutes staring at my phone. Then I drove to her storage unit. If she wouldn't talk, maybe whatever she kept from that time would. The comments on this part went deep. Okay, so the previous owners built that fence specifically for her? That means multiple families knew about this thing and just managed it instead of calling someone? That's what kills me. My mom finally admitted the realtor disclosed the fence when they bought the house, but called it a boundary agreement with the adjacent resident. Legal language, like it was a property dispute. My parents thought it meant the neighbor was just difficult. They didn't understand what they were actually agreeing to until my mom saw her at full height. I keep thinking about how many families before us just quietly moved away. The fact that your mom burst a blood vessel screaming and then moved your whole family in 2 days tells me she saw way more than she ever told you. That's not a normal reaction to a weird neighbor. OP came back a few days later with an update post, and this one changes everything. I went back to the old neighborhood and something was left on my windowsill. I found a box at my mom's house. Old school stuff, kindergarten art, the usual. Most of it was normal. Stick figure family, our dog, houses with triangle roofs. But then I pulled out a stack of drawings of Mrs. Bellamy. And they were wrong. Like, deeply wrong. I drew her arms wrapping around the fence posts. Not just gripping them, wrapping around them multiple times like vines. Her fingers were longer than her legs. And her mouth? I drew it opening top to bottom, straight down the middle of her face like a seam being pulled apart. The thing is, I drew these the same way I drew everything else. Same crayon pressure, same happy sun in the corner. I wasn't scared when I made these. I was drawing what I saw. I showed my mom and she completely broke down. She told me she saw Mrs. Bellamy once through a gap in the fence at dusk. She said the woman was crouched low to the ground, and then she just unfolded, like something standing up that had too many places to bend. Mom said she was close to 12 feet tall. Her arms had extra joints. And the fence? It wasn't for privacy. The neighbors before us built it because Mrs. Bellamy wouldn't cross it. Something about the wood or the way it was constructed kept her on her side. Mom said the day she screamed wasn't because she was startled. It was because Mrs. Bellamy was reaching over the top and her arm was still going, still extending, like it didn't have a fixed length. The comment section on this one went to some dark places. I'm sorry, but the phrase, "her mouth opened vertically," made me physically put my phone down. I can't get that image out of my head. The part that gets me is that you felt safe. That's not a detail a person would add if they were making this up. That's real memory, and it's deeply unsettling. That's what predators do though, right? Whether human or otherwise. They make you feel chosen and special. The food, the gentle hands over the fence, it was grooming. Just not by anything human, and that's so much worse. There is still one more piece to this story, and trust me, it does not get easier from here. OP came back a few days later with one final update. I went back to the old neighborhood, and something was left on my windowsill. I drove out there one more time. I don't know what I expected to find, but I needed to see it again. The house is gone, completely demolished, foundation cracked open, lot overgrown with weeds pushing through the concrete. But the fence is still standing, 10 feet tall, clean, maintained, not a single board rotted or leaning. Everything around it is falling apart, but that fence looks like someone built it yesterday. I talked to a woman across the street who has lived there since the 80s. She said nobody has lived on that lot since 1998. She also told me the city tried to take the fence down once, sent a crew out and everything. The project just got quietly dropped. No explanation, no follow-up. My mom has stopped returning my calls completely since our last conversation. I have tried 6 times. Nothing. I need to say one more thing. and I don't know how to make this sound believable. 3 nights after my last visit, I woke up around 4 a.m. because my cat was at the window making that low, chirping sound. On the outside ledge, there was a small plate with sliced fruit on it, neatly arranged. I live on the 3rd floor. There is no fire escape on that side of my building. There is no balcony. There is nothing to stand on. And that right there is what makes this one sit with you. The horror was never the creature. It is that OP felt safe. She felt loved. Something monstrous was hand-feeding a child like a pet, building a bond over cookies and sliced fruit, and every single adult on that street knew and said nothing. The fence kept Mrs. Bellamy in her yard, but nothing about this story suggests she is still in that yard now. The comments on this final post were something else. Please tell me you have cameras on your apartment. 3rd floor windowsill, please. The fruit on the windowsill means the bond was never broken. She fed you then. She is feeding you now. You never stopped being hers. She marked you when you were 6. You were always hers. And that is the last story for today. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves out there.